That we know exist with the mention of the name NAFDAC. We thank you. We thank you because when NAFDAC broke into our national consciousness, we thought that with the transition of the leadership, that perhaps we would not have such a strong institution endure in the way that it was introduced to the public, but quite clearly, a good work you're doing. Thank you very much, Ma. I would also like to thank you for honoring our invitation at a very short notice. We appreciate that. Thank you. Please, I would like to jump and come back to Kola, who is a friend of ours at Financial Nigeria, but I want to talk very briefly about my sister here. So at NDFF, if we had a faculty of speakers, Dr. Amina Salihu will be one of the leading lights on our faculties. She has been with us from when we held our 2012 conference in London to the one we held later on in New York, as well as the one we held in Washington, D.C. So this is the fourth time in a row that we have had the privilege of having her. I mean, thank you, thank you, thank you. I will make a short recognition as well, and then I will introduce my other panelists. I would also like to recognize the support that we have received over the years at the institutional level from the Nigerian Export-Import Bank. They have also been with us through our conferences in London, as well as those that held in New York, as well as Washington, D.C. And then individually, I would also like to mention that Dr. Chamberlain Peterside has been with us, and he's facilitated and spoke at our conference in New York City in 2014. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now, well, let's say that I'm reserving the best for last, right? I am close to NSIA, and I know that they are doing amazing work in investing in the health sector of this country. Kola is one of the key guys there that are making things happen. And because of the work that he is doing, I know that our health sector will emerge, and it will grow, and it will serve the needs of the people. So I'm very happy, Kola, to have you on this panel. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you. So we will go into these conversations very, very fast because of time. My first question is to Professor Adeyeye, and it is just simply this. We have heard what you do at NAFDAC, but I think that from the standpoint of an investor, somebody who wants to invest in the market, there is a greater need for people to know why you do what you do. That is to say, what are those factors that undermine the attraction of investments in the healthcare sector, which fall within the ambit of regulation, and that NAFDAC is working very hard to address? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jide. During my speech, I mentioned the fact that if an agency does not have a quality system, an investor may come, but it will be for a short run. So there must be a quality system that will produce quality industry. In terms of what may undermine investment that falls under our purview is a company that does not meet compliance. But we are very transparent, at least as much as we can, to let investors know that all companies are not equal today in terms of their compliance level. They may be in 5 years, they may be in 5, 10 years, but for today, they are not equal. This is the template that you need to work with. We have low risk, we have high risk. We have medium risk. You can partner with the low and medium risk because we have tested them, we know that they are compliant. The ones that seemingly not compliant is not because they do not want. Some of them are very unscrupulous, few of them are unscrupulous, but many of the ones that are not yet low or medium is because of financial whatever, So it is lack of compliance that may deter an investor from coming. And that reflects directly on us. If we're not strong, then the investors will not come. We have now investors actually coming. The meeting that we had that is going on right now in Lagos, as we speak, some investors are going to Ota to see our companies. Because sometimes there's a bias because of, misinformation or some reality of what happens here that will not make an investor to come in. But now they're going to come in and see. So lack of compliance is one big thing that may deter an investor from coming in.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Right. So, so we talk about the Nigerian health sector. We love to see it as a market and a viable one at that. And you will not have a viable market if you don't have the capacity to consume. So I am going to come to to Dr. Salihu. And I want to say that what are those issues that challenge consumers in the health sector in Nigeria?
Many thanks indeed, my brother Chidi. I bless the Almighty for the day that our paths crossed, and thank you for the honor of this conversation. Oh yes, he deserves that round of applause. Don't hold it back. The health sector is indeed a market, and a market takes at least the demand and the supply side coming together and meeting each other more or less halfway in terms of needs being met. And health is a consumption that you call autonomous. So whether you have the financial, material means or not, once you have a health need, you have to meet that need. It's autonomous. It's not a want, it's a need. And that's the first point of analysis that I want to lay down, because I might be raising some points that might be something that is already out there in the public space, but also controversial. I mean, what's an NDFF conference without some controversial questions being posed anyways? The Nigerian consumer faces a multi-sectoral challenge, and I want to thank my sister, Prof. Adeyeye, for the earlier presentation and for saying something fundamental. NAFDAC wants to center the citizens and the consumers, and that matters. But that multidimensional challenge has got to do with the issue of affordability, and we don't have much time, and this audience is very knowledgeable, so I don't have to break that down at this point. It has to do with the issue of quality. It also has to do with the issue of trust. What do I need to use at every set point when I have a health need? Where is the best market to get the best product? What is my take-home pay? What is my earning power to enable me to purchase the medication that I need? Another dimension of that challenge of the market is that the market does not yet recognize some of the intersections, and I was glad to hear the Honorable Minister reference that today, and the DG NAFDAC as well. What are some of those intersections? One of them is the intersection of health and food. I don't know how many people speak Yoruba in the audience, but the Yorubas will say, Ebi n pa mi, Oloshe n polo. Please, if you can speak Yoruba at your table, try and translate. Or in Hausa, they would say, the ruwan chiki akan janeridia, for the Hausa speakers. In other words, in Pidgin, if I never wash the inside of the belly, I won't wash the outside of the belly. Food is the fundamental beginning for healthcare, and what we eat matters. Nigeria today has a 30% and counting food inflation. That has import for healthcare. Then when you think you understand what you need to use, my brother Jide, then you find that the private sector that is the provider is shrinking. I used to say I sit on the board of GSK. Now sadly I have to say I sat on the board of GSK, because GSK, after 50 years of service in this country, is exiting Nigeria. And the cost of the DGNOs, pharmaceuticals, antibiotics, the cost of asthma medication has more than jumped 1,000-fold. How should Nigerians respond? The final challenge, my brother, I want to speak to is the context of health insurance, and the fact that we don't have to have billions of money stacked away to have reassurance that our systems would work and stand by us when we have a health need. But the cost of health insurance today is out of the reach of Nigerians. Now, are we really serious about addressing the consumer or the demand-supply side dynamics if we're not able to guarantee that you're going to have access to the resources when you need it? My final question: are we deliberately being blindsided by other alternative health opportunities that Nigerians already recognize, but which the orthodox system is yet to properly center? I'm talking about what is being called alternative medicine. My grandmother taught me the value of moringa while I was a child, but I don't see people using moringa here, but they'll be very happy to buy an imported packaged tea of moringa simply because it's packaged and it is foreign. How do we begin to center our intellectual property and ensure that those things we've always known are brought into the center stage of health, and we're able to close that consumer-producer divide? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Right, so we know that there are issues in the market that regulation is trying to fix. We know that there's an issue with purchasing power and other issues. But nevertheless, NSIA is investing in healthcare in Nigeria. And I would like to ask you, Kola, why is NIC so investing?
Thank you very much, Judy. Thank you for the warm welcome. For you to understand the NSIA is Nigeria's sovereign wealth fund. We have 3 ring-fence funds, for which about 50% of new funds we get go into the Nigerian Infrastructure Fund. The Nigerian Infrastructure Fund invests in commercially viable infrastructure projects in Nigeria. That is critical to ensure sustainability. However, we also look to have social impact, and that is why we're investing in healthcare. We invest in particular verticals of healthcare that we believe actually we can impact, at the same time ensure reasonable commercial returns for ourselves. The coordinates that Dr. Salihu mentioned earlier about the intersection of trust, quality, and affordability are characteristics with which we selected the verticals which we believe are important in the healthcare value chain. One of those verticals for us is diagnosis. We believe that high-quality, affordable diagnostics is not easily available within the reach of most Nigerians. So far, we initially started with a pilot of 2 diagnostic centers in Kano and Umuahia. We've rolled this out over the past few years, stabilized these businesses, so much so that for good quality MRI scans in Kano, we have people coming from Niger to our Kano center to come and get their MRI done. So we actually have a case of reverse medical tourism because you have affordable quality care available. And so right now, we are rolling out the next 23 diagnostic centers, of which the first 10 are actually in construction phase right now. For us, it is critical that we expand access to care. At the same time, we're able to make our money back from our investments.
Thank you very much. I'm going to come to Professor Adeyeye with this next question. I know that even with the size of this audience, we have people who are looking at the healthcare sector to invest. I know that there are people who have had certain experiences wanting to come into this sector. Some of them are foreign friends, and they are seated here. Now, I just want you to briefly tell us the words of comfort to participants in the market across producers, the producers who are the investors, the consumers as well who are here. I mean, what are the words of comfort do you want to give them from NAFDAC in terms of the work you're doing and how it is relevant to their concern and the performance of their investment or prospective investments in this sector?
Thank you very much. I want to pivot back to what my sister mentioned about quality and trust. I was out of the country for 37 years in the US, and I was the pharmacist in charge of the Baptist Medical Center in Ogbomoso. We were, of course, it's a mission, it used to be a mission hospital. We have missionaries, very savvy, well-educated doctors. Whenever they were going home for holidays, they buy medicines from Nigeria. And now we will ask them, why are you buying medicines to take to America? Oh, you know, FDA, that time FDA was not good. Now FDA is the poster child of a regulatory system. So the quality was better then. And when I came back, it was a completely different story. That is what we have been trying to do day and night for 6 years. To have that, to give our people that reassurance that we are restoring the trust on a daily basis. First of all, from 2011 to 2018, NAFDAC was pulled away from the ports, maybe by some cabals. So, everybody will say, take it to Nigeria. There are no gate men, no gate women at the gate. That was where we fell down low in terms of quality of medicines. Narcotics, any medicine falsified, counterfeited, bring them to Nigeria. And my first 6 months, I was running after tramadol. And my clients, other clients, I say, are you going to look at us? You know, we have thousands of products. Because tramadol was destroying lives, destroying homes, because our port was left unguarded. And our mandate is to regulate and control importation and exportation. But they removed us. from the market for 7 years. So we have been mopping the mess that our policy, whoever made that policy, had on us. So my words of comfort is that we do surveys every year. We use statistical method to know where to sample medicines from different parts of the country. Informal markets, formal markets. Informal, like open marketers, Idumota, whatever. And we have been decreasing the level or the prevalence of substandard falsified medicines. It used to be 40% before my time. It became 17% just before I got in. It's now about 12-13% average. We do this every year. And one thing that has worked against us is time. We are so short-staffed that our staff work round the clock. So there are some things we need to put up on our website to talk more in this type of forum that we have not been doing as much of. To put those up and say our prevalence is decreasing, prevalence of bad medicines is decreasing. We inherited a mess, we are mopping it. Maternal child commodities. We are watching those like a hawk. Oxytocin is used to prevent postpartum bleeding. Millions of women have died in this country, including my own big sister that trained me during childbirth. She died. The child also died. My first child almost died at UCH because I was given oxytocin to induce labor. It was not progressive. At that time, we didn't know. Well, I wasn't really part of NAFDAC at that point. It was not known that oxytocin is subject to environmental heat, humidity, and whatnot. So what doctors will do is actually give you like 1.5 times the dose because they didn't understand why it didn't work. They gave it to me. I almost died. They have to rush me to the hospital and started tearing my hospital gown with scissors, or to the theater rather. I have been admitted, then rushed me to the theater because the child was getting weaker. So we are doing a lot of things with maternal and child commodities. I showed it on the slide. We are doing hand-holding with companies making amoxicillin for children because we want to be sure that they can get better, but it's not just getting better, it's getting pre-qualification so that they can trade, because we cannot just be trading among ourselves and thinking we are okay. No, the GDP has to increase. Unemployment has to decrease. So that is the words of comfort that we are improving, and we are watching essential medicines like a hawk so that you and I can take our medicines comfortably and be assured that whatever we are taking is good. Please do not go to the street corners to buy medicines because we are not there yet in terms of having total control. Go to pharmacies where you get receipts. If it doesn't work, go back to that pharmacy and call us and say, this medicine didn't work, we will investigate. For the investors, I think it's the best time, and I mentioned this yesterday at a side meeting in Lagos. This is the best time to come to Nigeria. First, because you have a strong regulatory agency that is getting stronger. If I'm an investor, actually NSIA came to my office about a month or so ago. If I'm an investor, I will go to the regulatory agency. How about these companies? how about this? Can I put my money with this company? Because company may give you what you want to hear. Oh, we are the best, but they may be high risk, which means for this year, they may not qualify. So for investors, you have a regulatory agency, maturity level 3. We are just 1 out of 3 in the world. We are 30%, this group. We are going to maturity level 4. Without maturity level 3, we cannot manufacture vaccines in Nigeria. Now we have companies visiting our local foreign investors, visiting our local manufacturers, wanting to partner with them to manufacture vaccines. So it's the best time because of the regulatory agency, not because I'm the DG, but because I've seen what has happened over the last 4 to 5 years. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. As a consumer in the market, I must say that even me, I'm comforted by what you have said. Thank you. Now, the Honorable Minister has left, but let me just preface my question with an encounter that I had with him. In November 2022, which was months before the election that brought this administration into office, I had an exclusive interview with him. And I can say that everything that he is doing or trying to do now, he already knew and he already spoke about them during that interview. And we are blessed at this time as a country with a minister that we can definitely say that came very prepared for the job. Now, but we still have our own part to play in this situation. So I know that the minister talks about all of government's approach to healthcare and then all of society approach to healthcare. Now I want to turn to my sister, who is one of the leading voices in the social space in Nigeria, very, very professional, but nevertheless a strong social voice in this country. I want to say that, what's your assessment, Dr. Amina Salihu, what you have seen so far with the effort to crowd in social action into healthcare transformation in Nigeria? Are you pleased? Do you have advice or something like that? Because we can definitely convey such to the Honorable Minister.
Many thanks indeed for the question. And I would say that it's a yes and a no answer to your question. It's a yes because we need to recognize what's working. We need to name it and center it, and that's how you find energy to ask for more and to demand more and hopefully to get more. There's certainly an increased awareness of Nigerians. Prof, you're absolutely right, ma'am. And there's something, for example, that NAFDAC does that actually encourages, if you will, a pulling together of citizens to also do their part. And I just want to give the example of 1 or 2 medications. If you picked up any malaria pack medication today, or you picked up any dewormer, for example, you would see a QR code you can scan to know whether you're buying an original or it's a fake. There's a number to call, like the DG has said. And these things kind of set to sort of push back responsibility to Nigerians. They say, hey, listen, we can't do it all. We need your help. And I think that is something we need to call out and call out very well. And so sticking with that, therefore, is the need to be consistent about communication. Some of the amazing changes we've heard today from the DG's presentation should be known to more Nigerians. Because let's face facts, this country is not moi moi. It's not easy to rule Nigeria at all. It's not easy. And for someone who has been on the government side and then on the private sector side, and now I'm a development partner organization, I can say that I have a good sense of the triad of the relationship that this country requires. It's government regulatory agencies on one side. It's an engaged and empowered electorate on the other. And it's a class, a values-based class, that is quite determined to do what is right. And so communication is very important, to be consistent, to let Nigerians know their own part, the roles they have to play. And one of those communications will be in terms of, and again, another controversial issue, but one which has to be said, and the Honorable Minister talked about the fact that the Northwest and the Northeast stands to gain if we have a virtuous and not a vicious circle. And so I want to talk about the question of fertility. We cannot, as a people, continue to produce children just because we can, without asking ourselves the question, what's the quality of life? You're not going to need government to help you do that, for crying out loud. Because as it is, you're not getting enough services as you need. But once upon a time in this country, we had an advert in the North that said people needed to control their family. The translation in Hausa was control the family, and there was a pushback. Because from a religious point of view, you don't have a right to tell me to control my family. But then the government listened, and it changed to space out your childbearing. I mean, spacing out is logical. The woman has to rest. The family has to nurture that baby and itself. And so communication is something very important to ensure that the crowd pulling from the demand side also meets the crowd pulling from the supply side. A second point I would like to put on the table around how we can continue to engender this is about accountability. And the first panel made that point absolutely well. It does not matter how much resource is going into health, whether it's trillions of naira, whether it is 4% of the budget every year, or it is 10% of the budget. If we're not tracking and following the money, all else will be lost. And the DG said it. If the money does not go into private pockets, but it goes onto a platform or an account where we can use it for public good, then we can do more. Citizens cannot just sit back and say, well, we have elected you, go on there and do your duty. It's not going to happen, because governance, not government, governance is what we need to focus on. And that is about the quality of the government we get, because we are paying attention to the nature of that government. And if we are not playing our part of ensuring that the right people get into office, some of us say that politics is dirty, so we stay back. And furious will continue to rule us. Now, if we have round pegs in round holes, chances are that we're going to get a whole lot more done. And my brother Jide, I've heard you salute the minister as someone who's come very ready. That is very true. We need to find and make the point of having more ready people, more aware people in all of those spaces where they ought to be. Because of that intersection I shared earlier about the economy as a whole and the health sector as a subset of the economy. And the point was made earlier, for instance, about electricity in the earlier panel. That is such an obvious, low-hanging fruit that if Nigeria fixes that, the multiply effect of electricity on the quality of lives of Nigerians will be absolutely infinite. You can plot that graph through many dimensions in terms of how that change can make a difference for Nigeria. And if we're not spending all of our money, NSIA is here, and we're thinking about saving for a rainy day, you know, because there was a time when we had, I think, an $80 benchmark for the petroleum, for a barrel of petroleum in the budget, and in that year, we had like $100 or $120, and some people somewhere who are meant to be representing us wanted Nigerian government to sit down and share the entire money. Why? Who does that? You would not do that with your own personal money. You should not also allow government to do that with resources that belong to us. The final thing I'd like to say, dear Jide, about crowd pooling and ensuring that everybody feels part of this whole commonwealth is that we have to build infrastructure in the health sector. And thank you for sharing your personal story, dear Prof. I had a husband who had a brain bleed. I'm trying to put it very, laypersonish. And he had gone to Dubai to do the surgery, and he had done it twice. And he came back to Nigeria, and the final solution for Lukman's brain hemorrhaging was found in a hospital in this country by a surgeon, a neurosurgeon, who today is the lead in charge of the National Hospital, Dr. Raji. And every time I see him, I salute him. Dr. Raji performed that surgery in a private hospital. It wasn't in a public hospital. But the human resource that we need to deliver the services we need is already here. Nigerians leave the shores of this country and perform so well in other climes. Why is that so? It's not rocket science. The context, the environment serves them. I'm a proponent of everybody being well paid, but I also want to ask us the question, what kind of country is it that bankers earn a whole lot more than doctors and nurses and teachers? What are we trying to say about our priorities? I'll rest my case for now.
Thank you. Kola, please, I would like you to just explain to us how you invest in healthcare at NSIA, because I know you don't always do your projects alone. There are opportunities for co-investing and something like around that. So I just want you to enlighten this audience as to how you look at investing in the health sector.
Thank you, Jide. Thank you very much. So we invest sometimes, we will go alone, as you said, and just, identify the opportunity, develop the thesis in-house, do the research, and then execute. But a lot of times we do that in partnerships. So we do that in partnerships with the private sector and also with the public sector. So we also do a lot of PPPs. In fact, the NSIA Youth Cancer Center is actually on the premises of Luth in Lagos, and our diagnostic center is actually on the premises of teaching hospitals in Kano and Umahia. So we have a lot of public-private partnerships that we engage in. In terms of the actual financial instruments we use a combination of equity, debt, or mezzanine-like instruments. For us, it's actually just ensuring that the business we're investing in is sustainable. And it can actually keep the lights on at the end of the day without any subsidy, without any access to other government funds. For us, it is also important that while we are looking at developing the physical infrastructure, we also develop the human infrastructure. Because that human capital, especially in healthcare, you cannot achieve the outcomes you require without having that human capital that is very well trained. And so we invest a lot in training both our own staff, but also the general healthcare industry as a whole, especially in things, for example, where our expertise is not at the levels we need it in country. So, for example, in oncology, we actually have a lot of sessions where we bring specialists to our campus to train them, to show them the modern techniques of treatment, and we invest a lot in training our staff as well to actually, for the betterment of society, really. So for us, it is ensuring we have that human capacity, we have that, the financial instruments sort themselves out really, as long as have a bankable project, ensure that there's access across the country and is well spread, and look to have basically reverse medical tourism going forward.
Thank you. So based on what you are doing already and perhaps the feasibility that in fact you did that informed your decision to invest in this sector, shall I ask, what's your outlook for the Nigerian healthcare sector, say in the next 5 years, just for us to know?
So the Honorable Prof. DG NAFDAC has actually alluded to it already. We were in the offices earlier this year. For us, COVID taught us a very, very sharp lesson. We cannot continue to depend on foreign inputs for our pharmaceutical industry. Aside from growing the verticals that which we are currently invested in, we are also investing heavily in excipients and API manufacturing on the shores of Nigeria. The active pharmaceutical ingredients, or APIs as for short, are typically imported largely from India and from China. And during COVID, a lot of countries shut their borders, and countries like India and China stopped exporting. And so we had a situation where our own pharmaceutical industry could not manufacture because these active pharmaceutical ingredients was not available. Even when borders did reopen, it now became a case of the highest bidder. You now had countries outbidding each other, and the developed countries with a lot more money were basically outbidding the emerging market countries for these same ingredients. And so it was a case of, if you do not have it and you're not self-sufficient within your country, your people will suffer. And we're trying to change this. And so we are looking to invest right now, and that's why we were at NAFDAC, in the API space, in the excipient space, and we're looking to partner because we cannot do it alone. There's a lot of investment that will come from the private sector, but also a lot of expertise as well that we are looking to garner and leverage off. Dr. Salihu mentioned something about alternative medicine, and this for us is also crucial because we like to understand, what we can formulate and working with NAFDAC to ensure that we actually have access to things that are already within country for which we haven't registered the IP. But we think the future is bright, the future will be challenging, but the future is in our hands.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Dr. Salihu, you've already said a lot. you said a lot. But just as your closing remark for this session, I want you to charge the people, stakeholders in the public space, that is the public sector space, the private sector space, the international sector space, who all work in one way or the other to promote healthcare in Nigeria. What would you like to tell them?
Well, I would like to follow on my brother, the NSIA's intervention, Owodunni, about the fact that the future is bright. I see hope. I have faith in this country. And this is speaking to everyone now. Nigeria is the only country where I'm going to be a first-class citizen. I can go to everywhere in the world, and my job allows me to do that. But I always come back home. You always have to come back home. We all cannot japa, and even it's only 1% of our youth that are japaing. So we need to think about what we're going to do with the 99% of our youth. Our youth must have faith in this country. We must invest in their future, because if by the year 2050 we're going to still have about 70% of our population being young people, we have to ask ourselves what kind of investment are we, what kind of infrastructure, if you will, pipeline are we beginning to create at this point in time? That is very important to do. I think we need to engage in behavior change. We need to change our behavior towards ourselves, towards our fellow citizens, towards our community, towards our government, and then it has to go in reverse, government back to the community. A question was asked earlier by one of the leaders from Katsina about what we're doing about the state. Everything is local. We have to remember that everything is local. And so until and unless we're looking at how the effect of policy is perceived at the local level, at the grassroots level, we cannot really do much for the bottom of the pyramid. If we can have 100 naira a day school in FCT, not Abuja, Abuja is just the city. The FCT has its, peri-urban challenges. If we can have 100 naira a day school in the FCT, why can't we have a 200 naira a day healthcare insurance in this country? Why is it impossible? So we need to change our behavior in terms of how we perceive insurance and how we perceive our role. You don't have to be very rich to get the services you need. If we can have advertisements, and I'm talking now to the private sector, and those of us who also are responsible for the health of Nigerians, if we can have our airwaves flooded with advertisement of Coca-Cola, and all of those sugar and all of the terrible lifestyle-inducing consequences, why can't we also have water advertised and people reminded that the value you get from drinking God-given ordinary water is higher than you carrying your money to buy sugar all the time? By all means, you can take it as a treat, but it cannot be a way of life. My final point is that we have to salute and respect our caregivers. And our caregivers are not just the doctors and the pharmacists and the nurses and other healthcare workers that I had mentioned earlier. It is also our women. And I like the fact that from the minister to our DG and the earlier panel, there's been a centering of the fact that we need to pay attention to the dynamics of gender. Women and children subsidize this state, the state as in government. And whenever resources are not there and services are not provided, they have to find out alternative medicine, they have to find the water, they have to find other sources of power just because the state cannot produce it. If we do not recognize that mental care matters, we're going to be losing a whole lot more of our citizens to angst, to anxiety, to fear, and they're going to be dying of diseases that we've not yet diagnosed because we are blindsided by mental care. And I'm challenging my big sis. When you have your big sister, you can still make requests, and I won't see her every day. How do we also center mental care as we try to respond to some of those material needs that we have for health? Because it's a present thing. It's one of the reasons why drug abuse is on the rise. And we used to think that drug abuse was only young people. People, adults, married women, are now also abusing all kinds of medication. It is really scary when you think about the future. So in order to ensure that that future is bright, we need to begin to invest appropriately now, and we need all of us pulling together. I thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, Professor Adeyeye, I would think that you two, you are quite optimistic about the future of the sector, but let's have it in your own words, your outlook for the health sector in Nigeria.
Thank you so much. My brother from NSIA mentioned the outlook. In the future, the outlook is bright from NAFDAC's perspective, and specifically for APIs and excipients. He mentioned expertise. Unfortunately, our educational system is not what it used to be in Nigeria. Our graduates that we turn out now are not as capacitated as we were growing out of the university. What we did, we had a workshop on APIs and excipients October last year at Marriott, Lagos. We brought in university professors and the students because they are future workforce. So whatever they couldn't get in their curriculum, for the 4 days, they were taking notes profusely, including the professors, because we brought in international partners, international speakers, rather, scientists. It is very important to make up for what has been lost in our educational system, postgraduate, to do intensive 3 months, 6 months certificate course in whatever relative to a particular field. That is so important because we have to make up for what has been lost. I'm very sorry that some of our graduates are not capacitated. I came here as on sabbatical in 2005, 2006. I was co-teaching, and sometimes the professors don't come to class. And the students will be running around, walking around the hallway. I said, why? I've finished my own portion. Why are you going around? Oh, the professors didn't come. We have cheated our students. We have cheated our children over years by not giving them what they're supposed to. I cannot imagine myself being absent for 30 years as a professor in the US for one, and I feel comfortable sitting down at home or doing one thing or the other when I'm supposed to be in class. So we have to make up for the lost time. And alternative medicine was brought up. And it's good that NSIA is talking about it. Because we have thousands of alternative medicines that we have approved as listed, restricted, well, limited, not restricted, limited approval for 2 years. One medicine is an anti-sickling agent for sickle cell. My niece, who is a sickler, has been taking it for 20 years. Before that time, she had gotten necrosis of the hip, so she lives up to today. But since she started that alternative medicine, her life, the episodes have dropped like 80%. She got married, she has 2 children now. That is alternative medicine. However, we need to get, and that's where NSIA may come in, clinical trials. Because we have to do more robust research. My dream is to have 7 to 10 alternative medicines as in a national formulary that doctors can actually prescribe. But that has to be backed up by clinical trials. And it is very costly to do that. So the future is bright because of the like of NSIA, because of the like of my sister, Dr. Salihu. Because we love this country, we are first-class citizens here. I'm sorry to say that it is not like that outside the shore of this country. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So this nicely concludes this panel discussion, and we thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
A round of applause for our moderator and panelists, please. Thank you. We shall now take